Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Today's webinar from eDynamic is around the discussion of SharePoint for public-facing websites. And with the release of SharePoint, the latest release of SharePoint from Microsoft, Microsoft has introduced new capabilities and functionality that's specifically in support of public-facing sites. We've done a lot of work with SharePoint, particularly for content management around documents as well as portals. And we are finding that with the newest release of SharePoint, that's opening up a lot more doors and making SharePoint competitive with many of the other CMS platforms that are out there. For today's discussion, we're going to be spending our time understanding what some of those new functionality are and how to apply that to some of the business problems that we have. To start off with, I want to introduce myself and also my co-presenter. My name is Rolf Krause, and I am responsible for the content management practice at eDynamic. And so that includes both SharePoint and Sitecore, Electron, Drupal, and a variety of other platforms that we do. So we've got a broad background in various content management platforms. We do a lot of integration between SharePoint on the enterprise-facing side along with other platforms that are public-facing. We have done and are beginning to do more of the public-facing implementations on the SharePoint platform as well. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today. In addition to myself, I have Saurabh joining me, and Saurabh is responsible for the SharePoint practice at eDynamic. And he will actually be kicking off the discussion today. He's got quite a bit of experience, not only in CMS, but specifically around SharePoint and its capabilities from a CMS perspective and from a business intelligence perspective in collaboration. So he's done work with a few companies with this platform and is able to today provide us with some of the insights around the latest release of the SharePoint platform. Saurabh, go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thanks, Rolf. Hello, everyone. Well, I'm Saurabh, and I'm the SharePoint practice head at eDynamic, and today I'll walk you through with the new features of SharePoint 2013 for the public-facing websites. I've been delivering SharePoint for quite some time now, and my core areas, as what just Rolf has already mentioned, revolves around BI, CMS, branding, and SharePoint composites as well. At eDynamic, we have been delivering on SharePoint for intranets, extranets, internet, and also delivering on the managed services for SharePoint. So today we will be talking more about what SharePoint 2013 has to offer for the public-facing websites. We're going to cover these points during the discussion today. We will talk about how well SharePoint is positioned for public-facing websites. We'll talk a little about the common pain areas of building up a public-facing website. We'll also talk about a few key business features, business benefits for some of the features in SharePoint 2013 for the websites, and we'll talk in brief about those features as an ROI for SharePoint, and I'll also showcase a few sample UIs at the end. All right, so based on Forrester Research Global Web Content Management Online Survey, the days of standalone web content management are pretty much over. Now, WCM has become critical plumbing to most organizations that will need to integrate it with a variety of applications. Having said that, now SharePoint is actually becoming more popular in terms of this application is easily integrated can be easily integrated with a different sort of a customized piece of work which we do on top of SharePoint. It could be the third-party connectivity, or it could be the user engagement or partner engagement. So for such purposes, SharePoint is actually just picking up really quick, really great these days. So what's in there? What's in SharePoint 2013? Well, the overall architecture explains it pretty well. Like SharePoint and governance is a sort of a common layer on which we have the websites and the actual WCM resides on. So some of the key features in 2013 are like the improvised search, the social networking, content management and authoring, cross-site publishing, enhanced navigation and managed navigation as well, multilingual content enablement, detailed analytics, and MDS. So there are quite a few features. There are other features as well. However, during today's discussion, we will be pretty much focused on just a few of them. I'll just start talking about that in a few seconds from now. So I'll just talk a little more over here. Often we tend to forget that SharePoint is basically meant to mainly facilitate the end users. In the initial release of SharePoint 2003, which was more like a prototype, things were on a very simpler note. Later, MOS 2007, which we sometimes call SharePoint 2007, was majorly focused for hosting the customized solutions. Therefore, the developers got a professional extension model on top of it. With SharePoint 2010, the last version, the IT pros got the service applications. However, in new SharePoint 2013, which is very much focused for the end users, it seems more like a gift for them because most of the things can be done with low or no customizations at all. Let me take some more time here and talk about the improvements in SharePoint 2013 to support the web content management system. It has the ability to easily copy content from Word to rich text editor. The ability to work with video content is really easy in the newer version. The ability to show dynamic content from other websites, means retrieving contents from other websites, is also awesome in 2013. The image rendition support that allows you to show the same image in different sizes across the site is sort of a new add-on in this SharePoint 2013. The support for multilingual site has been improvised. Ability to maintain content in one or more authoring areas and displaying it in the publishing areas is now very easy. Improvised navigation capabilities now that allows you to create complex menus on top of it. So this is something which is really getting very popular in 2013. Ability to aggregate content easily using category pages. So we can now set up pages in different categories and then we can aggregate the content accordingly. Friendly URLs that enable end users to navigate the site easily, like in the earlier versions we used to have that .aspx or /pages type of URLs. Now URLs are a lot more simpler and prettier. So the ease of branding and device-specific targeting. We will be talking about these two features in detail in a while from now. So about positioning SharePoint, if you look at it, this is a sort of a generic block where we have some of SharePoint's key offerings residing, like workflow, SEO, collaboration, search, some other SharePoint composites, which further facilitates different portals residing on top of SharePoint, which gets integrated with analytics and reporting, and further offers features like campaign, social media, web forms, learning, etc., and can also be rendered through iPad, Android, and handles or laptop or desktops as well. Okay, so the common pain areas for building a website, say there are quite a few actually. A poor user experience. Say for managing the branding and the related UI elements, we have to make the necessary changes in the CSS or V4 files at the moment. Then also have to deal with the CSS versioning and the new elements we are trying to incorporate. So this specific thing is actually well addressed in SharePoint 2013. Time finding expert. Resources are very scarce these days. That too on SharePoint it is actually very difficult to get a right set of developers on board. Therefore, to get someone on board who knows the admin, dev, customization, and the design part has been quite a job. Like till 2010, but now things are going to be changed in 2013 because most of the things can be done by the admins or by the content authorized or by the content authors itself. So now the enhanced themes, cloud-based app model, managed navigation system will take care of this specific event. Extreme coding for minor customization. Yeah, the pain of making complex changes in the code for every minor change in the branding elements has always been a painful area. So now in 2013, when we have low code or no code a thing coming up where we have most of the solution already hosted on the cloud environment, things will be changed. Device-based rendering. Depending on incoming traffic and traffic channel, the rendering will happen now. Earlier, it was the same irrespective of the user request coming in from an iPad or laptop. The amount of bandwidth used to be consumed pretty much on the similar nodes. Now things will be changed, though. Usage analytics, it has always been a very high-level thing in the previous versions. Now it will also cater to the requirement like who clicked what and remain on that page for how many seconds or minutes. And more detailed analytics will be populated using the analytics of SharePoint 2013. Security and compliance. Managing governance and the compliance part has also been quite a painful area by far when you have a large content management system in the organization. But in 2013, the categorization of people, permissions, and policies, 3 Ps that revolves around governance, has been handled pretty well. So if you look at it, like this was a global survey, and it shows like number of people, it just shows the stats for different categories, like why people use SharePoint and for what all areas. You can see that like they're using it for content repository up to 37.6%, and people are hosting custom applications on top of SharePoint, and the amount is 44.8%. So here we are targeting a third bar over here, portal and web content management. So 66% are actually using it for the web content management, and this was for SharePoint 2010. Now when we will have 2013 in place, the bar will even raise up further. Okay, so what's in there for public-facing websites? There are cloud-based app model, there are workflows, content authoring, device-based rendering, cross-site publishing, content by search, themes, enhanced navigation, and minimal download strategy. Even though these things are pretty much generic in the previous versions of SharePoint as well, however, there are a few things which are new in SharePoint 2013, and there are a few things which are improvised in this newer version of SharePoint. So we'll talk about that from the next slide onward. People are using SharePoint for Enterprise Wiki, publishing divisional portal on Office 14 and Office 15 structures, and you're also trying to publish or having a sort of a corporate intranet blend with the intranet or the public-facing side, wherein we have a few areas which are exposed on the public-facing domain. So these things are actually getting pretty common when we try to do the web content management on top of SharePoint 2013. Cloud-based app model, this is what we're going to talk about now. This is something that could be a little bit confusing for users, is that now everything is an app. Now they don't add a list or libraries anymore. Now they add list and libraries apps. So whenever we just, if you remember the days we used to click on all site content, and then we used to click on the button, or like for example the document library or list, and then we used to click on create, and then that specific content type used to get provisioned on our team side. Now things will be changed. The cloud app model supports modern web standards like HTML, JavaScript, ASP.NET, C#, and PHP are some of those standards. Like these standards are 100% supported with the new app model. Having said that, like for those who are worried about security, the new app model uses isolation to separate the app from the main domain. Apps are literally deployed to their own website in their own domain, which serves to further protect from unauthorized access of sensitive data. This also helps driving the adoption for on-premises environments looking to utilize the public SharePoint store. So if your organization starts utilizing the new app model, public SharePoint store on internal app catalog, you will be giving your users the ability to find, install, upgrade, and even remove apps without even calling the ID folks. So if you are worried about this, like ID still has control on it. You can choose to restrict access to the public SharePoint store and create your own internal app catalog. Regardless of which you choose, the experience is the same. The user chooses which app they want to install and work with. They even have the choice of when to upgrade them when the developer makes a change. So like as I have already mentioned, like there is a on-premise app model and there is a cloud-based app model as well. So for example, on a large complex organization structure where we have got good 3, 4, 5 or even 7,000 of users, then we can have an on-premise app model as well, wherein like we can give privileges to the users to select whatever app they want to use. There are some business benefits to it, like it is low cost for customization, readily available sandbox app solution, public or corporate app store model, ease or administration for site owners, procure deploy methodology, dedicated support for each application. This is how the cloud-based app model actually looks like. This is something similar to what we have App Store for our iPhones or Google Market for our Android handles. So this is something similar for SharePoint as well. We just have to browse the App Store, and there we can get to see all the applications listed. We can always browse through those applications based on the categories. Once the application is selected and installed, we can start using it. It's more like a content type and a web part mechanism blended together. This is how the app model looks like on the cloud-based app model. Like for example, I mean, this is the on-premise app model. If you look at it, like for example, I need to add a list library or a document library or a form template, whatever I need to create, I can just try provisioning it from the site content app model itself. All right, device-based rendering. There are different channels defined inside a level. Channels for single devices or groups of devices, and then we can assign alternate master pages to each channel and selectively include the exclude portion of page layouts per channel, and can preview while designing and authoring, and can specific control to define mobile rendering areas in content. I'll just showcase this one to you. Well, the business benefit, it saves the bandwidth, provides easy and quick loading, iPad and other mobile devices-based app support, dedicated user experience for each source, different page layout for each device type, and this is what I actually wanted to showcase here. We can create different channels here. Like you can see, there is one created for Windows Phone 7, one for iPad, one for Slates, one is a default. I can create another one, say Android handhelds, and then I can create different master pages for them. Master pages are primarily responsible for showcasing the overall branding of that page, the overall font size, colors, logos, pictures, the overall layout of the page. Everything is a part of a master page. So if someone is browsing the content from the laptop and using a high bandwidth, then the content which will be displayed to him will be fairly a little heavy one, like he will get to browse through very rich content. However, the one who's going to browse the content from iPad will, and say running on a low bandwidth, then the pictures and the layout will be a little different one for him. And how do we decide like the different layout should be displayed? We can decide that by creating multiple master pages here and assigning them with each channel. So this is a new feature in SharePoint 2013. Minimal download strategy. So this is a sort of a very interesting technology for developing web pages that are responsive and take far less bandwidth than full pages. Consider the scenario: you have an application with perhaps 15, 20, or even 40 different pages where most of the pages, navigation, header, footer, and so on, are more or less similar. Today, even though most of the content is the same for all of the pages, you still need to download the full pages every time you load a new page. So for SharePoint, that's burden because pages are quite heavy with tons of CSS behind the scenes script, view states, and so on. In fact, a default homepage in SharePoint 2010 team side is nowhere less than 700 kilobytes. So basically, MDS allows users to load only what changes between different pages. This drastically reduces page load time and speeds up the responsiveness for the entire application. So it helps in keeping the performance issues low. It's quick, and it's more like a request-based rendering, like whatever channel request is coming in through, and whatever the bandwidth is just being predicted or identified by the SharePoint environment, which requires less effort on the data scaling as well. Themes. Developers can now get a themed version of the CSS that uses the demo colors and styles with a simple line of code. The theme engine has been completely reworked. Everything is now based on HTML instead of proprietary format, including support for HTML5. PowerPoint is no longer used to create custom themes. You get much richer themes and common building blocks for customizing them. Now the background image, palette, and fonts with live preview can be done very easily. You can try it out to see how it looks. The try it out is actually a feature. This is a new feature in themes. It gives a preview of what all changes you have made without publishing it for all. So having said that, now the designers can use tools like Adobe Dreamweaver, Microsoft Expressions Web, or another HTML editor rather than having to use just the SharePoint Designer or Visual Studio to brand the SharePoint site. Some of the key business benefits are the composed looks feature, more like a framework, 14 awesome by default themes, lucrative user experience, theme builder, what's your style option to create a new theme. It's more like that you can set your own colors, layouts, pictures, logos, columns, font size, etc., and then can save all your branding elements as a template. So, and that is actually fits under the category of what's your style. You can save your style. So it saves a lot of money on branding. So this is how by default site looks like in SharePoint 2013, which even though it looks very complex but gets created right out of the box in 2013. Imagine a situation you had to create one like that in any of the previous versions of SharePoint, say MOS 2007 or SharePoint 2010. It would have been a nightmare because we will be required to create huge CSS, incorporate plenty of branding elements into it, whereas in 2013 most of those elements are already incorporated in the existing or the readily available CSS files. All right, workflows. So there is a new workflow model at the core of SharePoint 2013. It is built on the same OAuth authentication and iframe model that all new apps must work with. It is a redesigned workflow infrastructure that is built on Windows Workflow Foundation 4 and brings new power and flexibility to workflow authoring in SharePoint 2013. It's better and enhanced. Now it's much more able to handle the complex activities, including looping and working with web services. Now workflows are powered by Windows Workflow Foundation 4, which was substantially redesigned from earlier versions. This new Workflow Foundation in turn is built on the messaging functionality that is provided by Windows Communication Foundation, which we now call it WCF. Conceptually, workflows model structured business processes. Therefore, Workflow Foundation 4 workflows are structured collection of workflow activities, each of which represents a functional component of a business process. It is important to note the relationship between workflow activities and SharePoint actions. Workflow activities represent the underlying managed objects whose methods drive workflow behaviors. Workflow actions, on the other hand, are wrappers that encapsulate the underlying activities and present them in a user-friendly form in SharePoint Designer. Workflow author interacts with the workflow actions, whereas the workflow execution engine acts on the corresponding activities. The key business benefits includes the requires much less efforts to implement, easily maintainable and editable, low-cost customization, eliminates end-user complexity, ease of building complex workflows with the data outside SharePoint. Okay, so let's talk a little about some of other features in web content management. Say the content by search. This is a sort of an additional web part which we have in SharePoint. The majority of content of a public-facing website built with SharePoint 2010 was represented by publishing pages. If you had a list of items such as product catalog and wanted to display those on your public website and have them properly indexed by search engines, you were quickly getting towards custom development. Although the SharePoint 2010-like publishing model is still present in SharePoint 2013, now we have a new way of publishing content based on search. By crawling lists or pages libraries, we can have the context indexed, and using the new content by search web part, we can have the content displayed using templates, which significantly simplifies presenting structured content. The great thing is that since the content is served from the search index, it doesn't even have to be in your farm. So I think that's great. So it will further minimize the performance issues anyways. Okay, pretty URLs. It actually sounds exactly like the way it is, pretty URLs. The URLs of publishing pages in SharePoint 2010 consisted of the paths like /pages part, or the name of the page followed by the .aspx extension. Although it hasn't been provided that such URLs have a negative impact on the ranking of pages in search engines, many customers complain about them though. So if you choose to use managed navigation in SharePoint 2013, you get the ability to use pretty URLs, URLs that don't have the /pages part or the .aspx extension in them. And because you are using managed navigation, which is detached from the physical structure of the site, you can define the URL of your pages as you want. In a way, if you look at it, it contributes pretty well to the information architecture. Managed navigation. All right, this is one thing like I like the most about now in SharePoint 2013. Earlier, managing navigation in 2010 was quite a job. In SharePoint 2010, the navigation was related to the physical location of the page. Although you could change this default behavior by building a custom solution, it was challenging to have it properly integrated with the content management capabilities of SharePoint platform. SharePoint 2013 introduces the concept of managed navigation, where the navigation of your site is determined by a taxonomy defined within the managed metadata service application. By tagging the pages using navigation terms, you can have your pages be displayed wherever you want them, despite their physical location within the site. And should you rearrange the authoring structure, the site structure and links will remain untouched, which offers content authors great flexibility. Social networking. So that's quite a topic over here. Like it includes the news feeds and community sites as well. But before I talk a little about news feeds and community sites, let me just spend some time on the social networking part. The previous release included a concept of a personal wall that could be written on. In the same way, the publishing infrastructure allowed users to provide comments and ratings on publishing pages. While these features in their time were leaps and bounds ahead of the previous generation, discussions were flat with no chance to reply to individual comments. These discussions areas were also somewhat limited in terms of findability. Comments were tied to the subject of interest, limiting the functionality in terms of a true social networking tool designed to promote collaboration through ad hoc discussion. And in SharePoint 2013, a raft of new feature and functionality that tackle these shortcomings head-on, making for a truly powerful social networking platform. Let's talk in brief about another enhanced sub-element of social networking called news feeds. News feeds are still found in users' My Site, but are also available in many out-of-the-box templates. When I say out-of-the-box templates, these are templates which are readily available when we procure SharePoint that requires no customization. Users can post comments, questions, or general information about the subject of interest, be it a person or a site. What makes the newsfeed so exciting is the ability to hashtag topics or @mention other users. @mentions are immediately made available in the associated users My Site newsfeed, while hashtag posts are automatically augmented through search. The search engine constantly analyzes the recent posts, providing visibility into real-time hot topics of discussion. Having said that, users have the option to follow colleagues or sites. In doing so, any comments, questions, or replies posted in their respective newsfeed will also appear in their My Site newsfeed, which is awesome. This provides a user the ability to now not only register their interest in other people, but content as well. Finally, any comments can be liked, unliked, or marked to follow up. This wasn't a part of SharePoint 2010 earlier. The latter option provides an automatic task in the user's personal task list, prompting them to respond to a comment or question. I think this new cool feature is sort of something even advanced what we have in Facebook, LinkedIn, or in some other social networking tools. Okay, another subset of the social networking would be the community site. Community sites are provided by SharePoint 2013 as an out-of-the-box template. We don't really have to do any customization to build one. They are designed to facilitate and encourage ad hoc discussion of a topic, event, or specific content in a controlled and engaging fashion. Much like a newsfeed, users initiate dialogue through the creation of a post. This may be a question, general comment, or semi-controlled content. In much the same way as a typical newsfeed, users can respond to form-threaded discussions. A user ranking is made available right alongside any post or replies, providing user a simple, intuitive, and fun way to quickly identify which reply might offer the most value. Rankings are configured on a side-by-side basis by administrators. A promotion is awarded as an event in a user's newsfeed. Finally, site administrators have the ability to gift awards and merits to those users who may have demonstrated expertise in a subject through alternative means. Image rendition. So, well, this is another beautiful feature. When browsing to a website using a mobile device, visitors would by default download the same images as desktop users, given that mobile devices generally run on limited bandwidth and speed. This experience is far from perfect. So using the new image rendition capability, we can now specify image rendition formats for every image that needs to be loaded. Using image rendition, we can not only resize images to fixed size, but can also crop them, making sure that the image keeps its value. Images served as renditions are modified server-side and cached, what ensures that visitors get the best experience, and at the same time, your server won't get overloaded modifying the images. So if you look at the ROI, the collaboration pretty much adds up into the increased efficiency, increase in sales, and cost reduction, and it happens by enabling the increased self-service, accelerated decision-making, and improved user adoption features, specific features in SharePoint 2013. These are the features available in SharePoint 2013, and most of them are readily available from the internal and the cloud-based app model as well. So similar note is for the search engine optimization. It helps in the brand visibility, brand standards, and targeted prospects. Workflows easily maintainable, low customization cost, and creates more productivity in the organization. The information architecture defines the site hierarchy, because browsing through the site hierarchy on SharePoint has been quite a job lately. But in 2013, these things can be refined because we have got the feature of managed navigation incorporated in the newer version. The social networking, community, and news feeds are adding up definite value. The dynamic activity feed, knowledge mining tags can be achieved by enabling such features. All right, so let's just have a quick poll over here. Let's just see like who all are using SharePoint for Internet, who all are using it for intranet, and who all are planning to go on the extranet. Okay, so based on the poll, it seems like most of the users are currently using SharePoint for intranets. So there is a sort of a good news. Like if you already have SharePoint infrastructure in place, you can extend the usage and can use the same infrastructure to host the public-facing websites as well. Of course, some additions in terms of hardware, some licensing-related requirements will still be there, though. So if you look at it, like we have very less number of users using SharePoint for internet, but what we can do is like we can have a sort of an infrastructure that can host the overall SharePoint environment in-house. We can always use the options like hosting our public-facing website on the SharePoint Online stuff, like where we have got the SharePoint, where we have the hosted environment of SharePoint. But it's always advisable to have it on the in-house if you have large number of users in the organization, if you have a large number of audiences who are going to browse your site content, because it makes things a lot more easier in terms of publishing content on it. So if you look at it there, let me just have a look at the poll results once again. We still have people, those who are not using SharePoint at all. And to cater to that area, like we recently did quite a few webinars lately that talks about why to use SharePoint for intranet and some of the cool features for SharePoint 2013. These videos are available on our YouTube channel. I guess like if you guys can have a look at it, you'll get more and detailed insight about why to use SharePoint for intranet, why to use SharePoint for extranet, and new features for the overall new features of SharePoint 2013. So these are a few cool things which are available on our YouTube channel as well. We will share the link by the end of the discussion today. Okay, so this is how the overall UI looks like when the site is created, eDynamic first team site. This is what you can see now on the screen, right? So once the site is created, first team site is created, this is how it looks like. By default look and feel of any site created on SharePoint. This is how it looks like. And if I want to create a public-facing website, I can get into the central admin and then I can create one from there. A new web application will be provisioned for that. sample of the quick launch and the document search. Earlier, till SharePoint 2010, if we were required to perform a document search, there was no search option available within that document library. However, in 2013, we have that feature readily available out of the box. And if we were supposed to make changes in the quick launch, even though some minor changes could have been done using navigation control in the site settings, however, for the major set of changes in terms of the what you see is what you get of functionality in SharePoint, we can now achieve it in 2013 by clicking on the option called Edit Link within the quick launch itself. So this is how the content types in App Store looks like. We just need to click on View Site Contents, and then there we have everything listed pretty much readily available. Just click on it, and then you have that feature available on top of your site. This is how the adding a document library or list library actually looks like. We just need to click on Add an App, and then there are different apps, different content types already available. Just need to click on it, and then it is just right available on your site. Earlier, these things were known more like a content type. Now the same thing is now available with the name of the app. Okay, so enhanced SEO. Let me just talk a little bit more about it. This is sort of a new web content management related capability in SharePoint 2013 is native support for search engine optimization. The great thing is that all of those properties are stored as site columns, so you can retrieve them in code, but you can also have them made available in search if you are using cross-site collection publishing. You can set quite a few SEO properties like titles, browser title, meta description, keywords, meta keywords, etc. by just clicking on Edit SEO properties. This is a very new feature which shows up whenever you are publishing any web content management or public-facing website. Following are a few examples like these guys. These folks are already publishing their content on the web using SharePoint. Like for Dell Financial Services, you can see how a site looks like. They have a dedicated your account login password as well, which means we have form-based authentication enabled in an enhanced way. You can also have a look at the different carousels like 1, 2, 3, 4, and over here, imagine a situation someone is trying to browse the content from the Android or from the iPhone. You will get to see the same set of content what a user from a laptop would get to see. So in new SharePoint 2013, when we have something called image renditions and a minimal download strategy, things will be totally changed. How? The one who's going to browse through the same content using the iPhone will be running relatively on a low bandwidth. Therefore, the different image will be provisioned for the iPad or iPhone users, and they will get the access. They will get to see those set of images which will require less bandwidth to be loaded completely. So, I mean, it will render the image, render the content pretty fast. And if you look at it, there are the overall layout of the page will still remain the same. If someone clicks on the finance options on top of it, or services, or customer service, the overall look and feel will still remain the same. However, the top level content will be changed. And how is it going to happen in SharePoint 2013? It's going to happen using the minimal download strategy. Another good example of the UPS store where we have got find the location, track a package. And I was actually just going through an article which says like even if you are going to enter your track ID in Google, it will actually retrieve the result with the UPS or by FedEx or whatever means you have used to just ship the parcel or the content. So I mean it will just track down your shipment. So you can track it down using Google. And how is it going to happen? How is it going to blend it pretty well with the SharePoint environment? Can be easily obtainable in SharePoint 2013 because SEO is pretty much very, very enhanced. You will be able to enter the right set of details. We will be able to enter the SEO properties pretty well and pretty detailed way in SharePoint environment. Okay, so this is another one. Well, as a matter of fact, I got to work on this one a few years ago. even though what we get to see on the screen is running on March 2007, but it can be achieved pretty well in SharePoint 2013. There are plenty of themes which are readily available, and that requires barely no customization. So whatever layout we can see right now on the screen can be achieved, even a better layout than this one can be achieved using 2013 with no customization at all. Another one who's using SharePoint quite extensively for the product showcase. As a matter of fact, I got to work on this one as well. This one is actually running on SharePoint 2010, and over here we have used an extensive SEO, and the product catalog contains plenty of detail. So in order to retrieve detail, in order to get the users engaged on this one with the news carousels on top of it, things were a little challenging in 2010 because it required a lot of content editing, it required a lot of code and third-party tools enablement. But in 2013, things will be a lot more simpler. Okay, so we have got quite a few questions. What's new in SharePoint 2013 compared to 2010? Okay, that's a good question. So let's talk a little about the development changes. In SharePoint 2013, Microsoft introduced a new cloud app model for designing, like apps for SharePoint are self-contained pieces of functionality that extended the capabilities of SharePoint website. Whereas in SharePoint 2010, we had sandbox solutions to help developers deploy code that did not affect the whole form. The tools were like SharePoint 2013 has introduced new tools for app development. Visual Studio 2012 now lets you develop apps for SharePoint and apps for Office as well, in addition to new web-based tools called NAPA, Office 365 development tool were introduced for developing apps. Whereas in SharePoint 2010, you could use server object model and client-based object model like .NET managed scripting and Silverlight enabled services to extract data from SharePoint. And in terms of the social and collaboration feature, 2010 had very limited a few social capabilities like my site, tagging, and tag profiles and notes. And in 2013, in addition to whatever we had in 2010, we have interactive feeds, we have community site, we have follow people, we have follow sites. In terms of search, SharePoint 2010 had introduced integrated fast search as an enterprise search. In addition to this, built-in SharePoint search is still widely used in companies. And in SharePoint 2013 includes several enhancements: custom content processing with content enrichment, web service, and a new framework for presenting search result types. Some of the features added are like consolidated search results, rich result framework, keyword query language like KQL enhancements. These are quite a few things in new SharePoint 2013. And yep, it is like previously, or I should say current version of SharePoint that was released like couple of years ago, but in new 2013, the collaboration, the app model, the SharePoint social feed, the cross-site publishing are quite a new features, like which are really going to stay in for a long time. Okay, so we're getting more questions. Okay, does this new release of SharePoint offers anything for enhanced information architecture? Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, the managed navigation, the pretty URL stuff, these are a few features which are going to really add into the information architecture. Okay. And we are getting more questions. Can we leverage our SharePoint, which is serving the intranet system currently for internet? Yes, we can do that. All right, so the question is like if we can leverage our existing SharePoint environment, which we are using for intranet, for the internet purpose as well. To answer that one, yes, we can do that. We need to provision the farm accordingly. Like the current SharePoint farm will include quite a few web front-end application server, the SQL servers, the database servers, etc. And in order to cater the requirement of a public website, we need to first forecast like the type of audience which we are going to cater, the type of content which we are going to display, and the amount of customizations which we are going to host. So considering all these elements, we can improvise the existing SharePoint farm. When I say farm, I mean to say the existing SharePoint infrastructure. We may need to add a couple of more servers, but the overall SharePoint environment, but the overall SharePoint knowledge that we have, if we have some SharePoint related content which we need to publish, which we can do that if we want to leverage the same infrastructure or the same environment to host the public facing sites. To answer that one, yes, we can do that quite effectively. Okay, how about single sign-on authorization? Is it supported out of the box with custom code? Well, yes. The single sign-on, we often tend to talk about on a very high level of single sign-on. Single sign-on in terms of the web or the Windows authentication mode has always been there and will always be there on top of SharePoint. But when we talk about the single sign-on within different product categories like a SharePoint or maybe some other application, and users should be required to just log in only once and then should remain signed on SharePoint and the third-party application as well, then we need to configure the single sign-on more on the Windows side and less tweaks needs to be done on the SharePoint side. So it will be a blend of both the Windows or the OS side of single sign-on enablement, and some pieces of single sign-on needs to be enabled on the SharePoint level as well. And you also talked about the authorization. The authorization mechanism is pretty much the same what we had on 2010. In addition to that, we have OAuth, we have another SharePoint authorization and providers. For example, now we have ADAM as well, like FBA, form-based authentication using external Active Directory access mode provider, and we have SharePoint with form-based authentication and SQL and LDAP provider, which we used to have since March 2007 era. So these are a few things which we already have in place. And you have asked, like, do we have it readily available, or do we have to write some custom code for it? Well, we will. The authentication mode is readily available. The single sign-on mode will still require some sort of a customization. Some sort of a custom code will still be required if we need to ensure that the SharePoint and the third parties SSO needs to be in sync, and then it needs to be in sync. Then we need to ensure that then we need to write some custom code for that. However, if the SSO is required throughout the SharePoint environment, for example, there are a couple of websites running on top of the SharePoint environment, on the same SharePoint environment, being hosted by the same SharePoint infrastructure, then an SSO needs to be configured on SharePoint. That requires no custom code. We got another question here. As far as designing and previewing themes, is it similar to WordPress being able to preview your theme on the backend? Well, this is somehow similar, but what WordPress doesn't offer you in terms of theme and designing is like if you are creating a sort of a, say, your own theme, you can save it or can reuse it for the entire organization. Like you can just publish it internally. Whereas in WordPress, you need to have a dedicated account. You need to go through the different channels if you want to publish your custom theme to the WordPress environment. You can do that in WordPress as well, but you'll have to go through the different channels. But in SharePoint, you just create it and use the or style my CSS option, and then can start publishing it on top of it. So being able to preview your theme, yeah, that's pretty much the same like what we have in WordPress. A little bit enhanced though, because the overall properties and the overall things which we can change in SharePoint are a lot more than what we had in WordPress. And there are two things actually in SharePoint. Either you do things through the object-oriented way, like you just make changes in the font, you make changes in the layout, and then can create a custom CSS out of it. And another thing is like you can keep on doing changes using the object-oriented way, where you have all the pictures, layouts, and then in addition to that, you can make changes in the CSS as well, which you cannot do in WordPress. So it is a very beautiful blend of CSS, beautiful blend of the objects which we get to play around, different properties of branding and themes. Okay. So we are getting to, so we're getting quite a few questions now, so we'll just take one more. So here we're talking about, okay, the question is like, okay, let me just see how best we can just put it over here. Okay, so the question is like, is SharePoint search engine can SharePoint search engine be customized to content to search through the content residing outside SharePoint environment? Yes, like we can do that. This is something similar to what we had in SharePoint 2010 as well. Like we can crawl, we can index through the content residing on another platform other than SharePoint. We can do that. But for a public-facing website, I'm not sure like if you are really going to do that, because you will have search indexes pretty much specific to your SharePoint site, and most of the content which you would want to publish will be available on your own site itself. Why would you want to search through the content residing on another site? But just in case it is required, we can do that. All right, guys, there are a few more questions, but since we are running out of time, we will get back to you on all the unanswered questions after webinar via email. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within the next 2 to 3 business days. And for more questions, feel free to write us an email. Looking forward to that. Thanks everyone for your time today. Thanks for your time for taking up the webinar, and I hope it was quite a meaningful and a useful session for you. Stay tuned. We have many more sessions to come on SharePoint, and we'll keep you posted on that. Thanks.